The Whispering Walls of Alcatraz, Imart 1. I never expected to return to Alcatraz. My first visit had been like anyone else's. A tourist ferry, the pre-recorded audio tour, the faded paint and rusted bars photographed 100 times over. But something had happened in cell block D that I couldn't shake. While others shuffled on, I lingered in one of the solitary cells. The guide's voice had long faded into static when I heard it, a whisper. Not the creak of metal or the shuffle of shoes, but a voice, low, dry, too close to my ear. The sound froze me where I stood, but when I looked around, the cell was empty. I told myself it was my imagination, the brain filling silence with ghosts. And yet, years later, the memory lingered. I started digging, not into ghost stories, but history, archival reports, old newspapers, retired guard memoirs, and buried in the dust of 1941, I found something. A prisoner had died in solitary under what the warden described as unusual circumstances. The official paperwork said, asphyxiation due to unknown causes, but in the margins of the report, scrawled by hand, was something that stopped me cold. Kept screaming about eyes in the dark. No one believed him until we found him cold. That was enough to bring me back. The Park Service agreed to grant me after-hours access under the pretense of research. When I stepped onto the ferry at dusk, the bay looked less like water and more like a sheet of steel, restless and cold. San Francisco glittered faintly behind me, a reminder of how close freedom had been to the men who lived here, and how impossible. Ahead, the island loomed. The lighthouse beam swept across the fog like a blade. My escort, a ranger named Ramirez, met me at the dock. He was polite, but his smile didn't touch his eyes. Not many get the island to themselves, he said as we climbed the hill. But don't linger in D Block too long. People get turned around in there. Inside, the prison swallowed sound. My footsteps echoed against concrete and steel. B Block and C Block were cold but familiar. It was D Block that unsettled me. Ramirez stopped at the threshold. I'll wait by the office, he said, his flashlight beam cutting into the corridor. Don't turn off your light, not in there. The solitary wing felt heavier than the rest of the prison. The air itself seemed to press down. As I walked past the cells, I felt a distinct drop in temperature at cell 14. My breath fogged in the air. Something about the shadows there felt too thick, like the dark had weight. I stepped inside, shining my light across the bare cot and graffiti-carved walls. For a moment, I wanted to test what those prisoners had faced. I clicked off my light. The darkness wasn't ordinary. It was suffocating, alive, as if it wanted to press into my skin. And in that black silence, I heard it again, a whisper right beside my ear. I snapped my light back on, heart hammering. The cell was empty, yet the air carried the echo of that voice thinner than smoke, already fading. Later, when I told Ramirez what I'd heard, he just shook his head. Cell 14, he said. Some call it the Screamer's Box. Guards hated it back then, still do. That night I left with more questions than answers. The files had mentioned a death in 1941. But how many more had there been? How many voices were buried in the walls of Cell 14? And most importantly, what did they whisper about in the dark? To be continued.